One of the most difficult things in meditation today is finding a teacher or a set of instructions that actually leads to deep one-pointedness, true samadhi, and eventually to a glimpse of non-existence. And if I use a Pali word for that, nibbāna, or in Sanskrit, nirvana. Most teachers, even the well-meaning ones, have little idea of this natural process. They rely on rigid systems, generally based on books and sects and traditions, not on the verifiable experience. But just like any natural phenomenon, just like the growth of a seed or the cooling of hot water, there is a deterministic path, concrete path, from the observation of the breath to deep absorption. You begin by simply observing the breath, and over time, the breath becomes subtler and eventually seems to disappear. At this stage, a soft, luminous mental image often arises. If you can sustain this image naturally without forcing yourself, it leads to deeper levels of stillness and one-pointedness, and eventually to absorption, what we call jhana in Pali or dhyana in Sanskrit. Once you emerge from this state of deep concentration, you are in a very good position to observe the fundamental characteristics of existence, the fundamental characteristics of experience, the fundamental characteristics of mental formations. What are the fundamental characteristics? In Pali, anicca, which means impermanence, anatta, which means non-self, and dukkha, which is unsatisfactoriness. These aren't philosophical ideas, though we tend to theologize these ideas or look at it from a philosophical angle. These are observable phenomena, the direct workings of nature. When you observe how all mental and physical processes arise and pass away, it becomes possible just for a moment to see what happens when existence itself stops. The moment when your operating system of life, the body and mind, shuts down completely. To give you an analogy, it's like a computer rebooting. Silence and then restart. In that pause, the disappearance of entire mechanism, lies the actual element, nibbāna. The tragedy is that most teachers do not recognize or teach this natural unfolding path. This is a natural path. Nobody can force it. It happens due to laws of nature. But most are often bound to scriptures and ancient texts, using them like instruction manuals, assuming everything written has been accurately heard and remembered and interpreted across so many generations. But this is a fragile chain. To blindly trust what was written centuries ago, passed down through memory and ink, it's to put faith in uncertainty. It may sound logical to some or sacred to some, but it's simply not scientific. True observation comes from direct experience. The mind, not the eyes or scientific instruments, is the only valid tool here in meditation. And when conditions are right, the experience unfolds in the same way. It always has, governed by natural laws, not by tradition or belief or due to individualistic preferences. But many meditators fall into the trap of forceful concentration, trying to control or push the mind to reach certain states. This kind of excessive straining does not lead to true samadhi, does not lead to samma samadhi. True samadhi arises through letting go, not through mental tension or control. Practices like those emphasized in some Myanmar traditions, particularly those based on Visuddhimagga, encourage fixing attention forcefully on a mental image, we call it nimitta in Pali, to produce stillness. However, this kind of manipulation is unnatural and often leads to burnout, confusion, and I have seen in some lead to psychiatric disorders. It is not a path to freedom. It is not the path to freedom. Similarly, some Sri Lankan, Burmese, and Thai Vipassana traditions claim that reaching a thoughtless stage where the mind becomes quiet and free of verbal thinking, but without the stability of one-pointedness, is a profound state. Sometimes they even equate this with jhana or nibbāna. But this is completely wrong. The absence of thought alone, without actual samadhi, actual one-pointedness, is not a sign of progress. It is a useless blank state, and it does not lead to liberation. Without deep one-pointedness, such a state is devoid of insight and is a hindrance on the path to awakening, on the path to experiencing nibbāna. Only one-pointedness that arises through natural letting go, not forceful, effortful suppression, forms the foundation of samma samadhi. The concentration that supports true insight into impermanence, non-self, and suffering. What is needed is a return to nature, a path that unfolds not from control, but from curiosity, openness, and letting go. When meditation follows this organic sequence, this natural sequence, breath, silence, light nimitta, absorption, insight naturally arises afterwards, after such a deep samadhi sitting when you practice vipassana. You can see through the illusion of permanence, selfhood, and satisfaction. And what remains is the element of nibbāna. This is not learned through books. This is discovered in silence.